Hello and welcome to the mindfulway podcast. This is episode 5 of our series of podcasts, and today we are going to talk about why self-development is so challenging. And my name is Andras, this is Michal, my friend, and we are mindfulway. We are all about working on ways to integrate positive change into people's lives by making self-development more practical. So, Michal, introduce us to today's subject and talk a little bit about what we mean when we say why self-development is so challenging.
Yeah, so episode 5 of the podcast, we have gone through 4 episodes, as you guys might have listened to, where we've been approaching self-development from various angles and mostly talking about our own challenges and our own journeys. And now come episode 5, we are finally tackling this topic of big challenges in self-development. What are those major barriers that stop people from effectively their inner growth and this kind of stuff that they are learning from reading books, from listening to podcasts, from consuming all sorts of courses and training, but not turning it effectively into action and into change? So there is tons of research that we have done, as we are going to share during the podcast today. And it is very clear from the research what are those big problems. So one thing is consuming the knowledge and then having the vision of how we are going to be in the future if we only make this change happen. But where we are getting lost is on those little iterations and steps that are needed to get to be that person. So yeah, we're going to be an open discussion about big challenges in self-development. And we're also going to talk about what could be done about this and what we are doing about this as mindfulway.
Yes, exactly. And so, let's start talking about the self-development industry and the self-help industry as a whole, which we've done some research about, and which is in the newsletter. But in sort of high-level stats, the self-development industry is worth $10 billion in the US, and an estimated 15,000 self-help books are published every year. And I tried to look up the effectiveness of all of this. So people are spending all this money on self-help books and courses and online materials, YouTube and all that. But is it actually helpful? So I had a look at some of the criticisms of the self-help content is out there, and discovered that self-development actually might not be as effective as we think. So maybe we just don't want to admit it to ourselves that we're not actually making any progress. So they make a good few points on the literature that I found, and it says that some of the content may not align with research, and some of the advice are maybe too general, not effective for people because it doesn't fit their lives. And some self-help content may feel people actually worse about themselves and make people avoid getting professional help, for example. We also have to mention manipulative marketing. People may selling courses that are not effective and not backed up by science. And so there are a lot of issues with the material out there. It's just not very publicized whether people are actually successful in consuming all this content or not. Or are we just buying a book, reading it, and then putting it on the shelf because we're actually unable to apply it to our life? So this is what I found about the material. And Michal, tell us a little bit about what you think the personal barriers to success in self-development might be.
Yeah, it's very interesting. What you touched on is not being successful on a self-development journey can be demoralizing, right? So it can make people feel bad about themselves. And it just made me think about one reason that maybe we have not discussed before. It could be articulated this way is that, why we still consuming this self-development content, even if we apply little of it to our lives. Like, there are people who are reading many books and the shelves are full, but then, and everyone knows those people, right? Like who are supposedly into self-development, but then just by the kind of person they are and how they talk about the events of their life, you see that they are not really applying what is in those books. And many of those books, like you see on the shelves, and you have read those books, you know what they are about, and you see that that person had not taken learnings on board. And I think it's because it's easy to fall in love with ideas, but it's much harder to fall in love with action.
Yeah.
Because this is where the difficulties are, right? So ideas, like everybody has ideas about everything. And, me coming from an engineering world, like that's obviously ideas, everybody has them, but doing something about it, like engineering your life, that's harder. So I think
taking
that's
action,
like one. But then and it's just a nice bridge actually to the, the personal aspect of self-development, because I think firstly, let's take a step back. So there is all this knowledge out there. So let's just label it as knowledge. So books, podcasts, everything of this sort. And one must find the kind of knowledge that fits them, right? Because we're all seeking different things. And sure, one subject can also be talked about by 100 different authors or coaches, right? Finding the one, like making that match between, okay, that's the kind of knowledge, or that's the perspective, or an angle of it, or a certain angle on a topic that resonates with me. Finding that itself, in today's abundance of information, is hard by itself. So maybe that's why people are, reading 1, 2, 3, 4 books on the same subject, just because they don't quite feel like, until one lands that really hits the home run and they feel that it resonates with them. So we've got this personalization challenge, like how do we then take something that resonates with us? Let's say we found it. But how does this translate to our unique life circumstances? It can be equally attractive to me and to another person, but if it would be applied differently to a life of an 18-year-old and 65 years old, right? Or person in a different cultural circumstance, or different even financial circumstance, right? Personalization of self-development knowledge is something that is done today by coaches and mentors and people who are basically charging for this service. So again, that's a prohibitive barrier for most. Yeah. So yes, great that this is happening. There is always this, like, and you alluded to that in your introduction, that there are people who are using the subject of self-development basically to make money, with no real desire of helping people. Or maybe they do have a desire, but what they are actually teaching people, it's not backed by science. It is not, there are quality problems with self-development, and especially with coaches. When you work with somebody, that's very similar to any industry, right? The fitness industry is a good example, where you have personal trainers who have done some dubious course, and now they are training people and actually causing people harm, and of course, there's a whole spectrum, and the same is here with self-development. Sometimes somebody could take a coach and have a good match, or not have a good match, also the outcomes. But let's focus on the majority for whom a coach is probably not an option. So personalizing the knowledge, or making it really fit into our current life circumstances, it's a big task that we have to do ourselves. We are totally left by those who are communicating the knowledge. Obviously have to do it generally. So we have a general knowledge that we must apply to our life, and that is a big friction point here.
Yeah, and how do you expect someone to know how to apply that knowledge themselves? So if you take the average person, okay, I have a goal of, creating this habit in my life. For example, I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to adopt an everyday habit of exercising. But how do you fit that into your life, to your circumstances, to your age, to your, life, in a way that it fits in with your family, with who you are, which is what I found challenging. But what else is there that holds people back from success? And these are the personal aspects of change, of development. We are resistant to change by nature. And if we buy a book, where is the accountability? Who's going to hold us accountable as to, doing what the book advises? And who's going to keep us on track to ensure consistency? Because I think consistency is so important in everything you do to actually make progress. You have to put in actionable steps almost every day to be consistent, and that those actionable steps are habits that you need to apply to your life.
And again, sorry to interrupt, sure. It's very personal, because there are people, again, also all around the spectrum, between those who are biased for action and it's very easy for them to take actions, and those who maybe have a slight problem with planning, with organizing, with setting schedules and following through and so on.
Yeah,
Right?
discipline.
So again,
Yeah.
the same knowledge would be applicable here differently to people. So what is important is the clarity on what is the action plan. Okay, so before we can be consistent and start actually enacting something, we need that clarity. Okay, this is the end goal and this is the path how I get there. So we just have like a chain of a sequence of events that everyone needs to figure out for themselves, and people have such a varied level of struggle with those elements that there isn't just a one for all solution. It's the contrary, like each person a solution got to be totally unique, and this is why we're talking about personalization.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be internal factors like your personality resisting to change and discipline. You have to be extremely disciplined to implement the habit in your life. Or it could be external factors like life getting in the way. You have exams to do. You have children to take care of, depending on what stage of your life you're in. Because some might have more time, some might have less time. So that's when coaching comes into play and plays a big part in understanding who you are, what your circumstances are, and then apply those actionable steps based on your individual circumstances. So, should we talk a little bit about our own experiences?
Yeah, go on.
What we've experienced because we are enthusiastic about our own self development. We love to talk about that, and I would like to talk about fitness and exercise because I've bought the books and I looked at millions of people giving advice on how to be healthier, how to move, what to do, and
So can I just pause? If you could explain like how do you link physical exercise to self development, and like how do you relate the two? Because I imagine for some people this could be two separate topics.
no, I link physical health very much with mental health as well. So for me, being healthy and exercise is actually part of the overall development of me. So being and habit forming as well, which might be part of one's self development. So I did buy those books about fitness and bodybuilding and all that stuff. Especially when you're younger, you think I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to, and you look at all these.
So how old were you then?
This is sort of 22, 3 when I started realizing that I would like to do something about. I was skinny and I wanted to do something look better as you do at your age, at that age, on early 20s. You put a lot of emphasis on how you look and what other people think about you. Now that we're older, we don't really care, but we're doing it for ourselves. But at that point, you're doing it mainly for others and for girls. So yeah, I did buy these books and I looked at them and tried to implement what they were saying, the diet, the exercise, and everything. I had to realize that those books were written for people who could spend, hours in the gym a day. And if you're unable to do that, that book is instantly not usable because it doesn't fit you in your life. And if you can't afford the diet, then your results will not get there. And then, it rolls on and you realize, okay, I need something that fits me. And of course, the book was written by a guy who had a totally different build, different genetic. And so basically, he wrote a book about himself and then sold it to everyone to then apply it to themselves. But then there were all these barriers, so to see where personalization comes in. And so it took me many years to realize that I have to find something that works for me. And with fitness and exercise, everything works differently for everybody. So you do a certain type of diet and you do a certain type of exercise, and then you evaluate it whether it's working or not. For me, it took a long time. But then you realize what's working for you, and then you have a system, a personalized plan in your head for yourself. And you're able then to form the habit of when am I going to exercise, how many days a week, what's comfortable, what's not causing me injury, what foods I'm able to eat. And so it's years of trial and error to personalize the knowledge that's out there. I could certainly have used the help of a coach or someone who I could talk to about, what's working, what's not, and who could keep me accountable, because there were a lot of times when I just stopped training due to injury or due to life, or I was just, wasn't in the mood. I didn't have a plan. Sometimes I was just sitting there, okay, I'm bored of what I'm doing now, but what should I do to make it exciting and motivating? And I just didn't have the knowledge. So yeah, but I treated it as a journey of exploration and self-discovery, but these problems were there, evident. Is this program credible? Is this working for me? Is this the same with the diet? Is it going to help me achieve what I want to? And consistency was another thing. There were times when I stopped, and this applies to everything else I do. If I want to pick up a new skill, I often find myself forgetting to do the action that day. And then a night comes around, I was like, oh, I forgot to practice Spanish because I recently started learning Spanish. And then the busier you are, the easier to forget to do the 10 minute of practicing or reading a story or something.
A Spanish girlfriend is a solution,
Yes,
I told you.
who could remind me every time. Yeah, so it would be nice to have something that puts all of this into a personalized plan. And then, maybe I get a reminder once in a while. Have you done your daily Spanish practice or, guitar or anything?
So what stops you from using like a tracking app, like the response of or even just a calendar, like a notification and setting it up? Because, like clearly that's something you are committed to doing and want to be doing. Like how does it happen that it's, is it like the clarity on like why you're doing it is not yet like clear enough that, you are not putting it at the forefront of your focus, or is it like, just competing with other things that are happening?
I think it's competing with other things that I'm doing. I think I could benefit from a daily plan that will tell me from 9 to 12, do this, from 12 to 2, do this. And I haven't managed to do that yet. To every night sit down and put in my notebook what I'm going to do the next day, hour by hour, basically. Because I feel like that would help. And I don't know if there is an app out there that could help me with that, but I'm not sure if I want to, fiddle around with an app instead of just putting it into a notebook, and then I can follow along the next day. Okay, this task is done. And then of course on the day you have tasks that you're not expecting. So you get an email from someone with an urgent task to do, and then you run over the time, and then it pushes your day out. So and then by the time 6-7 o'clock you realize you haven't done something.
Yeah, maybe on the subject on the learning Spanish, right? Maybe the way you're learning is like the problem you're not conscious of, because if this is, if you're like learning a new language for the first time, I know you don't obviously, but people who do might, for example, be like using a format that is not the best for them, but they just don't know about it because they haven't tried others, and in those kind of cases, like, it just becomes like this complexity starts, like, it's not about what you are trying and what you're doing, it's like the knowledge about everything that exists out there that could be helpful to you, you just don't know what, because it is like noise, right? Maybe you could use a coach or somebody who can help you, somebody who can mentor you. But hey, that also is like, well, how do you find the right person who resonates with you and so on?
Yeah.
And you end up finding that really, if you start looking properly, the ones that resonate with you, they will be like maybe somebody who you have been listening to a podcast from, or somebody like typically more well known, because you've got that credibility that they bring with their books and so on. But then prohibitively expensive to get time with them, right? So this is more like, okay, VIP premium type of stuff. And if you look at like, coaches, local coaches or somebody who can be there, like easily available, like, well, how do you verify whether they are really good for you actually, right? So it just very quickly becomes complex, and it's a lot of fight to actually make change happen if you think about it.
And that's a good point, actually, going back to learning languages, because when I started looking into studying Spanish, I thought, there are these apps out there, and so you just download it and then just do that. But there are other ways of learning languages, and I discovered this way of comprehensible input or immersion way of learning a language, which I find much more enjoyable for me. As some people, apps might work. So I found this way of...
Is the immersion method finding a Spanish girlfriend?
Yeah, that's one way of immersing yourself in a language, yeah. And so
Certainly.
what I wanted to say is, if I didn't stumble across this way of learning, I wouldn't know about it. So the knowledge could be out there, but I would be struggling with an app and trying to get the words in my head and the grammar, which I always hated, just learning dry grammar and dry word. And this way of learning, story learning, is a lot more enjoyable because you read stories and you figure it out on your own what they mean, like a little child. That's basically the immersion method. And so what fits you might be out there, but you might not be aware of it. That's the other thing. So only so much research you can do into a subject. So yeah, that there are loads of ways you can fail in self-development. These are just some of them that I faced.
Not enough. The change in itself is very hard, even if we have a clear path to what we need to do, what's good for us, and so on. The mother's advice, a good mother's advice, maybe. Even that is it's hard to adopt into our lives. But then right from the beginning, you are facing a set of massive challenges, and you don't know which one to start, and you don't know what you don't know, and finding somebody to hold your hand through this again in itself is a big challenge. So it's almost like it shouldn't be surprising that from this research that is in the newsletter, the ineffectiveness of self-development is a big challenge in the industry.
Yeah,
I think we shouldn't be surprised based on what we've discussed so far, because it's more like you are lucky if you find something that resonates with you by chance, really.
Yeah,
right? So you have to be lucky to be successful at self-development. It becomes a little bit ridiculous because this is something so deeply personal for each one of us, and it makes me sad actually that I am a person with a lot of determination, and I may be failing, and feeling really down, but I will keep going, right? But I know that I've learned in life that this is a quality that differentiates me. So most people are not like that, and people who give up, they just, or maybe don't even start properly. They don't know what they are really missing out on. One of the most wonderful things in life you can do is to go on this self-exploration journey, right? Because you become a better person, and that in turn makes interactions with you more pleasurable for your family, for your friends, for anybody you encounter. Yeah. So all in all, it's a win for humanity. And it is sad that a lot of people just, even if they begin on the journey, they are not finding results.
A lot of people fail right away. So when people search for information, you go on YouTube or you go on Amazon trying to find the book. There is, I said, 15,000 books are released every year in the United States on self-help. How do you know? How do you choose which one's best? So you're not only confused about what you should choose, it's the sheer amount of information out there that makes it even more difficult. So in the old days it might have been easier, like you said, your mom's advice, and that's it, that was the whole thing, you didn't know anything else. But now everything is available to you now. You just need to look into it, try it. But how can you try 15,000 different methods to find your own, what fits you? So yeah, it's not what's out there. It doesn't make it easier for one person to make progress. Yeah. So what was your personal experience with self-development?
Yeah, so I'll go to my younger times in my early 20s. So I've been working as an engineer at that time, and I've been moving into a different profession so that I can actually get more interactions with people, because with engineers we are pretty easily understand each other, but fitting well into society proves challenging a lot of times. Yeah, I've always been a social person and kind of not a typical engineer, but what was scaring me that the more years I was working as an engineer, the more limiting and suffocating I was finding the environment, right? So then I actually have switched to marketing type of roles in a bigger company, and there I've encountered this topic of self-development, right? So this is something that was new to me. It was, some HR courses that were offered to any employee can attend and, get some certificates or basically gain more skills. And of course, like my initial interest in that wasn't because I wanted to be a better person, was, oh yeah, like if I play the game, if I show my commitment to learning, which I love learning, right? It's just that there's so many different subjects. I never would have guessed that learning more about myself would become one of my favorite activities and topics, and to learn my understanding of the world and how it contrasts with others and all that. Yeah, I started going on those personal development courses within the company. And yes, I've read a few books that were recommended there. I've met some cool people who seem to be into, like, they've seen something I haven't seen about the importance of exploring how we are different from others, how we can relate to people. And then fast forward, I was progressing in that corporation and was promoted into more like managerial roles, and at that times I was facing the difficulties in relating to people still. Suddenly I was managing a team, suddenly I was dealing with like more stakeholders, a wider group of stakeholders, and struggling with those things. I've gotten a mentor. And here is like, I want to bring in this mentor because mentoring is like an important thing in my life. I've had 6 formal mentors, and then like now I have like a mentor who is informal. And right now I treat like, many interactions that I have as a sort of mentoring, because I know how to have those conversations so that both sides benefit of those interactions. However, initially the mentor was really eye-opening for me, because one of the first things that I've learned from the mentor was about being very selective about the kind of knowledge that I'm consuming and wanting to adapt. And the way he explained it is that there is a basically noise of information out there and you don't know what's relevant to you. And then what he told me is about allocating my time wisely to only pick up the kind of stuff that I might think relevant to me, and then scan over it very quickly to see if I feel right about it. Because what I was doing, I was reading those self-development books from the beginning to the end. I don't know why. I suppose that this is how I've been told, from a childhood. Like when you read a book, you start from page 1 and you read until the end, and if you haven't finished
you must finish it.
That's where you
started,
right? And he told me, like, if you imagine that this self-development book is an apple, then you don't want to just have one apple, another apple. You want to go and pick also the fruits and make a fruit salad. And how you do that is like some books are on one topic alone, some books are just overall, when they are covering a bunch of related topics, I guess more holistic. And really we get into these conversations because he has been recommending books to me, but he was recommending certain chapters. And the whole conversation on this topic of being careful about the kind of information we then try adapting and searching smartly and not trying to consume everything. Although I must admit that I am not applying this very well in my life, because I do consume a lot of the self-development knowledge, right? It's almost like I would go for a walk, I would, and because it's such a broad topic as well. So if I treat financial education as self-development, well, for me it is self-development, and therefore financial education is not, I would, when I go for a walk or when I go to the gym, like this is the kind of stuff that I will be listening instead of music.
That's actually a good point. Would it be worth defining what self-development is? Because like you asked me on how does, health and, exercise relate to self-development, there are different ways people would develop. We all called it self-development. It could be a skill. It could be, emotional regulation. I want to be better at handling emotions. And it could be a whole host of things, isn't it? Self-development. It's making you better as a whole, right?
It's becoming the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And so you are here right now, and here is your future self that you want to imagine and you want to get clarity on. You want to be vivid about, like, that's my future self. And we're not talking about the holistic definition. We say, okay, well, let's take one aspect, financial education, right? Or fitness, of the two topics. And any topic you can take that way. Say, like, this is where I am today, and this is where I want to be. And the clearer you see it, the more you can say, okay, well, that's the path that I'm going to take. And that path has to be unique to you.
And that's, right? That's your individual journey.
So if we say self-development, for me, definition of self-development is becoming the best version of self and it's a journey on which you are facing big challenges and difficulties of change.
It could mean learning new skills, being more empathetic. So it's not just it's soft skills and also hard skills.
And that's what is so beautiful about it, that this journey is totally unique for each one of us. It's like a fingerprint, right? Like you have your unique set of circumstances, your unique path in your life. And there are, it's like the multiverse stuff. You have infinite amount of future selves. And you choose which path are you going to go on. And if you take the right type of steps that are suitable to you, that are in agreement with your energy, with your values, with who you are, and with your ever-changing life circumstances too, you end up kind of that person that you've envisioned. And there will be some surprises, and in many ways this can be a better person, right? Because if you're on the path to betterment, you're gonna find along the way some opportunities and hacks, and you're probably gonna become, if you're on that journey, it's not even that you need to have a clarity, and that's exactly where I'm going, and I'm gonna become that person.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the direction I'm going, and how great it's gonna be, like, well...
And it's a self-discovery, self-exploration. As you are on your journey, you learn more and more about yourself. So...
yeah.
If I wanted to implement fitness in my life, then that led me to learn about my ability to form habits, or discipline, for example, is very important. And how consistent you are. And so you learn all these things about yourself.
All encompassing, even like what I said, like you will become the great person. But you know, the great person is not like great in a way that is better. He's better than the past self, but he's not better than anyone else. In a way, the great person is the humble person, is the person who learned all those lessons along the way.
So I just wanted to clarify that point, that self-development, it could be anything and everything, and it depends on the individual.
We have to define that on our website.
Yes, and then we can go back to your story.
So basically, this is where I want to link this to personalization, because it's interesting, because I have not seen it from that perspective, and I've always had a certain way of thinking about each of the mentors that I had, and them as a collective, because each had played like a very important part in my life's journey. But only now, when we are discussing these topics here at Mindfulway, I'm seeing it from a perspective of those mentors really were my personalizers of knowledge, and there are two sides to it. They have been bringing this relevant knowledge to me because of their larger experience in life. They had my best interests at their heart, so they wanted to bring me relevant stuff so that my progress towards my goals and objectives would be accelerated. And they really wanted to play a hand in that, so they were actually personalizing the knowledge for me. And also, the other side of it is the regular meetings, right? So usually there were different frequencies depending on the time. They could be bi-weekly or monthly, or just give me a call if you're facing some challenge and so on. This was something that was a game changer for me, and I could not understand why more people don't want to have mentors. I was really in such a tiny group in that company of people who, and the company had an official mentoring program, although it was not very well maintained, but there was even, how bureaucratic companies typically have loads of processes that are never used. So this mentoring stuff I actually found on the intranets of the company, and I went to HR and said, I want to have a mentor, right? That was something that my manager had proposed, that if I was interested in having a bigger chance for a pay rise, basically, was get a mentor.
Good thing he knew about it.
I think he proposed this mentor type of stuff, and I'm lucky to have always had great bosses, right? So he was one of the great ones, and he proposed mentoring and explained to me how it works normally and so on. But it was more of a proposal of okay, let's work together, identify somebody in a company that, from the people that he had in his relationships to basically take me under their wing, and so I can learn some things from them, right? And then I, wanting to understand more, I went on the intranet and searched for mentoring program, and it turned out that there is one, but it's nobody's really doing it and so on. But there was some paperwork, and I printed it out, and I actually went I actually went to a guy that I have been admiring, the way they do also those stuff, and I approached him and said, hey, I have a question, would you be my mentor, because I've this and that, or in your presentation a week ago, and so on. And I said, yeah, well, why not? This is a great idea. But anyway, what I want to summarizing that, it is invaluable. Like this really accelerated me in a massive way. It's just given me such an advantage because my learning was accelerated and there were people there who were really cheering for me, contributing like all the best they knew and wanted to see me successful, right? And the best thing is like I didn't have to pay for the self-development.
Yeah.
This is some of the perks of employment in a company, and but at the company I had 4 mentors, and then the 3 other mentors that I had after that were not in a company, right? And there are mastermind groups, and there are various ways to get help with self-development where you're struggling and when you don't have like other sort of relationships, because maybe there is somebody in a family who is great, or friends, and usually we get support from people who are close to us. And this is also a way of coaching, although there's not going to be anything professional there. There's going to be more of a moral support, right? And hopefully, plus, what I find with self-development is that it would be great to have an episode on how self-development changes your life, but also what are the downsides, yes? Because as you're growing as a person, you will find gradually that there are people in your life that you no longer can find common ground with them.
Yeah.
Then you meet other people who are on a similar journey and you find that you can easily and quickly connect with them, right? But the thing is that, people who usually we have in our circles are people who are less likely to want to put effort into becoming better, right? Like they would rather find excuses than, than reasons to put effort. They don't want you to succeed, really. So they will reaffirm you as soon as you are not following through with your plans. Like they're going to be very happy that you came back to the club and you're staying there where you are, and there is no danger that you're gonna run.
I guess it's part of self-development to learn to get rid of those people from your life. But while you were talking about your story, I was just thinking...
Very brutal getting rid. I don't want to get rid of anyone. I want to keep everyone. It's just...
No, you don't want negative people. You don't want in your life. Make sure
you don't want the energy vampires, that's for sure.
Yeah, make sure you get negative people, negative energy out of your life. It will change it.
Yeah, I guess it just depends who you have in mind, because I have in mind some people that I have a lot of love for, but I can no longer find a common language with, right? And of course, the energy vampires and so on, that's also a challenge that at some point on the journey it must be done.
Yeah, of course, there are people in your life who, like for example, family is a good example. You love them, but you don't necessarily have the same idea about life and purpose and stuff. So what I was thinking while you were telling your story is, how difficult would it have been for you if you didn't have access to mentoring and to basically personalized knowledge? Because that's what they did. They curated knowledge for you to consume, and then they kept you tracking your progress with these meetings and everything. So if you didn't have the access to this, how difficult would it have been for you to achieve that level of progress on your own?
Yeah, I don't know how much of a progress. I mean, it's always this awareness of how long the journey still is, right? But I certainly have accelerated my progress, especially that I guess I was late to start on this journey, especially now these days where you see with all the available information online, you get really young people and their level of self-awareness is like at amazing levels, and I mean, wow, that age I just I was so dumb. So I think it would be impossible. I would certainly not be the person I am today if not the mentors I had, for sure.
What is the impact?
And it was accidental. For me, it was accidental. Of course, I was open to it. Like I said, first it was not I wasn't interested in this. And when I heard self-development, I was more like, oh yeah, it's like,
I know everything. I'm the best version of myself.
Yes, I could be better, but we all have our problems. So typical. Like I was just like average, right? And it happened by accident or series of coincidences. But I think it's open mind and curiosity, right? Curiosity, maybe open mind less, maybe more curiosity, and then open mind. I learned through the process how to be more open minded, right? It happened to me, I take it for granted now, and I shouldn't. It's just such a important part of my life that that I cherish. I would have not seeked it myself. Would I ever get, let's say hire a life coach? Probably not. I would find it hard to work for somebody who I wasn't sure I have massive respect for, because even the mentors I had, they were carefully selected by me. It was always no, well, somebody might suggest or recommend, and I was always on the lookout for what I can learn from whom. For me, mentor was a person that I have immense respect for. And what is this respect? People interpret respect in different ways. For me, it's respect when I'm looking at them and how they conduct themselves and how they are with people and the level of professional accomplishments that they achieve, but the style in which they do it. And, there's something about them, right? That impresses me in certain ways. I want to be like them, in that aspect. So somebody who is at this kind of mastery level, I would find it difficult to have a personal trainer in a gym who is not a muscularly strong person who I can see that has got accomplishments in this field, not somebody who just done some certificate, but I have more muscles than him. And I think this just is because that makes somebody credible, yeah? And I guess I am lucky to be able to judge this in a way that fits me, but I'm also aware that it's easy to make mistakes. I fortunately have not made mistakes with choosing a person like that. But I imagine that it's easy to make such mistake.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've heard both of our stories, let's draw some parallels. Let's summarize what makes it challenging to be on a self-development journey. So I think we can both agree we talked about personalization of information, because the information is out there, but if it's not personalized for you, it is just a book or just a course. Too general. We both talked about the knowledge being actionable. So I talked about wanting to have an action plan for every day, and you talked about your mentors giving you personalized tasks for you to learn. And we also talked about adaptability to life circumstances, which are, we are all different. No two people are the same. And
you're pretty much left with all those challenges to yourself. So you buy a book or you listen to an audiobook, and then
how do you
figure out how do I apply it? So maybe try this, maybe try that, and maybe just leave it for later, and then it never happens.
There is no support. And you can't phone the author. Hey, I've read your book. It's really good, but can you help me?
And for the most determined ones, there is a possibility of prohibitively expensive coaching or mentoring. But again, there is all sorts of challenges with that, as we've discussed. And this, having somebody as an accountability partner, and this is basically what my mentors were for me. But it doesn't have to be a mentor. It can be often a good accountability partner is a spouse or a close family member who wants you to win. Right, but it's not easy to find that person, and then what's that person's commitment to really, that person will have to understand what accountability partner is and how to not just be nice to you, but actually pull your ears when you're not doing what you said you're gonna do.
And also understand your goals and where you're trying to get to. What is your destination?
And somebody to cheer for you, somebody to want to see you enact the change that you want to enact.
So we've uncovered the problem with self-development, but let's talk about. Let's talk about what we think the way forward might be for self-development.
As you see, there is immense complexity in self-development, and we've been talking for an hour about many aspects of insurmountable challenge of applying self-development into someone's life. So, as it stands, self-development isn't practical. And with mindfulway, we want to make it practical. We want to make it easier to integrate to people's lives. And really, everything we talked about today and more needs to be done to bridge between the self-development knowledge that is general and self-development knowledge that is personalized to person's unique personal circumstances.
So what we want to do is make knowledge actionable and personalized, practical, easily accessible, and applied to the individual's life circumstances, right? So how are we going?
We are right.
So should we go into how we're going to do that, or is that a secret?
So we are now working on a solution. So this is going to be on mindfulway.ai. So the best thing to do right now is to go to mindfulway.ai and subscribe, leave us your email address, or if you're curious about the solution that we're developing for making self-development more practical, send us a message on X or on Instagram, or send us an email. We are more than happy to talk to anyone who sees things from the perspective that is similar to ours, right? And it's not just about the platform that we are building, but also about anything that we've discussed in the episode today. So all those challenges and difficulties of self-development or stories that you want to share with us, yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, we'd love to hear other people's stories as well, because we share ours, but I'm sure there are millions of people out there who find self-development very challenging. I think those throughout, we're going to find a solution.
We will find a solution. The question is how soon we can make it good enough so that people have real benefits from it, right?
Yeah.
And it's always about, we're not going to have a complete solution to start with. We are working on a number of features, and we will test those features, and we'll see which feature needs to be first developed into something that is useful. So again, like if somebody is interested in what we're working on and how it works and wants to try it, like contact us and let us know.
Yeah.
We are not yet at this testing stage, so we don't quite have enough yet. But within weeks, we will be in position to show you something and to let you play with something. One important thing to mention here is that no, we are not building another chatbot, because nowadays there are chatbots for everything. And yes, this conversational AI is maybe a component of solving this problem, but it is not about creating a chatbot that's is just not good enough to help anyone.
So it's going to be a live tool rather than a chatbot, right?
Yeah, something that's actually you don't have to waste a lot of time back and forth talking to. This is like we've tried this with the Buyless app, where we've learned a lot about how to program, the custom GPTs and so on. I don't want to go technical here, but a chatbot interface is not the way self-development is best done. So yes, because when we're talking about solution for self-development and we're talking about AI, that might be first thought from people. These guys are building a chatbot, yeah. So it's not going to be a chatbot, but what is going to be is going to be surprising.
Yeah, excellent. So thank you everyone for listening, coming along, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Like, subscribe, and comment.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.